ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome. Today we are going to learn from verse number 47, chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. Verse number 47. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मा फलहेतुर्भूर्मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि. Karmani, in prescribed duties, eva, certainly, adhikaraha, right, te, of you, ma, never, phaleshu, in the fruits, kadachana, at any time, ma, never, karma phala, in the result of the work, hetuhu, cause, bhu, become, ma, never, te, of you, sangaha, attachment, astu, there should be, akarmani, in not doing prescribed duties. Translation. You have a right to perform your duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities and never be attached to not doing your duty. Verse number 48. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Yogastha, equipoised, kuru, perform, karmani, your duties, sangam, attachment, tyaktva, giving up, dhananjaya, O Arjuna, the conqueror of wealth, siddhi asiddhyoho, in success and failure, samaha, equipoised, bhutva, becoming, samatvam, equanimity, yogaha, yoga, uchyate, is called. Translation. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So we see verse number 47 and 48 are very important because here the essence of Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga is actually lying. So we get 4 pillars of Karma Yoga from this verse. Karmanyeva adhikar aste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhu and ma te sangostva karmani. So here we get the 4 pillars of Karma Yoga. Number 1, jivas have right for action only. Karmanye eva adhikaraste. Number 2, jivas have no right on the fruits of action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Number 3, jiva should never consider himself the cause of the fruits of action. Ma karma phala heturbhu. And number 4 is jiva should never be attached to non-performance of duties. That is ma te sanga astu akarmani. So we see that we must keep our focus on Shri Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, and perform our duties with a view to purifying our consciousness. We must understand that every little step we take in this manner is helping us to rediscover our true identity as Jivatman, irrespective of the fact that it brings success or failure in material terms. So, performance of such disinterested obligatory duties undoubtedly leads us to the path of liberation. And in verse number 48 also, we get the mantras of Karma Yoga. As Bhagavan says, Yogasthaha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya asiddhya samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So the 4 mantras of Karma Yoga we get from this verse. Number 1, all the activities to be done with great care and attention. No action is insignificant, and we should not keep any action halfway done. This is the first point. Point number 2 is, we must not hanker for appreciation or any kind of material benefit from any action that we perform. Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairashyam paramam sukham. Expectation is the cause of distress, and renunciation of expectation is the cause of happiness. So this is point number 2. Now point number 3, action is our duty, and success or failure is Lord's concern. It is the concern of the Supreme Lord. So all the actions to be performed to satisfy the Lord. There should not be any sense of proprietorship on our part. Actions that help for God realization and self-realization is to be performed only. So when we will study karma, akarma, vikarma, then we will know what are actions and what are not. Again, there also we will be able to connect with these points. And point number 4 is, we should consider success and failure equally. Such equanimity is yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. So we see that Sanatana Dharma can be defined as the performance of the duties based on Varna and Ashrama, with a view to liberate oneself from this cycle of birth and death, and also for the revival of our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord. The Vishnu Purana says that the whole aim of Varnashrama system is to satisfy Vishnu. In other words, we see Sanatana Dharma is the natural dharma of the eternal soul. Sanatana Atma, Sanatana Dharma. The religion of the eternal soul is called Sanatana Dharma. That is eternal religion. So it is the dharma of every jiva, specifically every human, because in human life only we get the opportunity to liberate ourselves from the bondage of birth and death. So with this we will now move on to verse number 49. So verse number 49 we see, Durena hyavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanam kripana phalahetavaha. Durena, discard it at a long distance. He, certainly, avaram, abominable, karma, activity, buddhi yogat, on the strength of Krishna consciousness, dhananjaya, O conqueror of wealth, buddhau, in such consciousness, sharanam, full surrender, anvicha, try for, kripanaha, misers, phalahetavaha, those desiring fruitive results. Translation: O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. So, we see that a sadhaka should perform all the duties to purify himself, because the Atma reveals himself in a pure heart. So this purification is very, very important. One who sees actions, all the actions, as service to the Lord and without any desire in the heart, he becomes free from the bondage of action. Here we can think of two brothers. Both the brothers serve their old parents, but with different interests. One is serving to satisfy the Lord, the parents, to get the largest share of their property. But the other is serving only to please the Lord by the performance of the duties prescribed for a child to his parents. So who is eligible to reach the God? Definitely the second brother. So the rule of this material world is to satisfy ourselves. We always try to satisfy our own self. Like for example, when we want to sleep more in the winter, in the warmth of the blanket, to satisfy our gross body. But if we somehow wake up and get ready to chant the holy name of the Lord or to meditate on the Lord, we are actually satisfying the Lord instead of satisfying our gross body or subtle body. So we see that the more we enjoy, the more we desire. By fulfilling the desire, by enjoying more, we cannot get rid of desire and the urge of enjoyment, the material, enjoying the material world. So desire cannot be over by enjoyment. This particular enjoying attitude is actually the root of all our suffering and all our bondage. Okay. So the next verse, that is verse number 50, is very important. Sorry. बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृत दुष्कृते तस्माद्योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्. Buddhiyuktah, one who is engaged in devotional service. Jihati, can get rid of. Iha, in this life. Ubhe, both. Sukrita dushkrute, good and bad results. Tasmat, therefore. Yogaya, for the sake of devotional service. Yujyasva, be so engaged. Yogaha, Krishna consciousness. Karmasu, in all activities. Kaushalam, art. Translation. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. So here in this verse, Buddhi Yukta, this is very important, and we have to understand it very carefully. What is Buddhi Yukta? One who is engaged in service, being equipoised, he is Buddhi Yukta. That is with of composed intelligence. What does it mean actually? When we are saying that engaged in service, being equipoised, what kind of service it means? What kind of service that satisfies the Lord? So there are actually two types. They can be categorized in two categories. One is direct devotional service and the second is indirect devotional service. The direct devotional service, which means Navavidha Bhakti, that we see in the Narada Pancharatra, based on Pancharatric principles. So they are hearing, chanting, remembering the Lord, worshipping, prayers by chosen words, servitude, fraternity, and total surrender. That is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasya, Sakhya, and Atma Nivedanam. These are the 9 themes of Bhakti. Now the second category that we have to understand even more carefully, that is indirect devotional service. Indirect devotional service means when we are equipoised and not attached to the fruits of action, yet we give our entire energy and focus to the action, remaining equal in success and failure. So then we get rid of the good and bad reactions sorry, of the actions that we perform. So it satisfies the Supreme Lord, and thus it is regarded as devotional service also. So yoga karmasu kaushalam, this is the art of action, Bhagavan says. And it can actually exhaust the prarabdha, that is instant karma or the active accumulated karma. So we see the unwavering devotion of a sadhaka gives him the strength to face all the adversities in life, all the adversities. They are not distressed on receiving sorrow, from this material world. We have seen many people in this world who are almost pure by heart and perform the duties for the sake of duties and for the welfare of the entire humanity. But we see if they are not devoted, then a false pride of selflessness can also arise at any moment. He may think that I am doing all the works selflessly, I don't care about myself, I am always engaged in the welfare of the society or the human race on the whole. So this kind of a false ego or false pride can also be generated anytime in his heart. Therefore we see service attitude in devotional mode is the highest. So only service is not sufficient. Service attitude in devotional mode. So Bhagavan says here that who is buddhi yukta, his focus is always steady on Bhagavan and he is constantly working or serving and is waiting to go back to Godhead, to go back to Krishna. So, okay, so with this the next verse, that is verse number 51. कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणाः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्. Karmajam, due to fruitive activities, buddhiyuktaha, being engaged in devotional service, he certainly, phalam, results, tyaktva, giving up, manishinaha, great sages or devotees, janma bandha, from the bondage of birth and death, vinirmuktaha, liberated, padam, position, gacchanti, they reach, anamayam, without measures. Translation. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So, here Bhagavan says that all the great sages who are buddhi yukta, of course, freed themselves from this cycle of birth and death and attained the place without miseries. But how it is possible to reach that place? It is only possible by their service attitude. They never act for any personal benefit, but performed every action as the worship to the Supreme Lord. So Gacchanti Anamayam, this part is very important. The place where there is no miseries. This material world is truly a miserable place. And there is danger in every step, which we don't understand out of ignorance. We don't know that no kind of material body anywhere in this world can offer life without miseries. The miseries of life, that is birth, death, old age and diseases, are present everywhere. But the liberated living beings reach the place where there are no material miseries. There is a beautiful verse in Śrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 14, verse number 58 in Brahma Vimohana Leela. So there Shukadeva Goswami says it to Parikshit Maharaja. That is a very beautiful verse. Samashritaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punyat yasho murare bhavam bodhir vasa padam padam param padam 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 yat vipadam natesham. So samashrita ye pada pallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare bhavam budhir vatsapadam param padam 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 yad vipadam natesham. So for one who have accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who is the shelter of all cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Mukunda, the giver of liberation. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. His goal is Param Padam or Vaikuntha. And there is no material miseries and danger in every step of life. Padam Padam Yad Vipadam Natesha. So, the great sages, by their service attitude, reach that place where there is no miseries. That Bhagavan says in this verse. Okay, so with this, we will move on to verse number 52. Yada te mohakalilam buddhirvyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. Yada, when, te, your, moha of illusion, kalilam, dense forest, buddhihi, transcendental service with intelligence, vyatitarishyati, surpasses, tada, at that time, ganta asi, you shall go, nirvedam, callousness or dispassion, shrotavyasya, toward all that is to be heard, shrotavyasya, toward all that is to be heard, and shrutasya is all that is already heard, cha also. Translation: when your intelligence has passed out the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So, here in this verse, this moha kalilam is a very beautiful word. That is, moha kalilam means the dense forest of illusion. Moha means illusion and kalila means the dense forest. So we see our desire to enjoy the material world throws us to the dense forest of material world. So when we become completely trapped in false hopes and endless desire, and cannot even believe that there could be any means to come out from this forest. But when we get an opportunity by the grace of Sri Guru, Shastras, that is scriptures, and Sri Bhagavan, we become able to surpass this dense forest also. So we see then we can become indifferent to the rituals of this material world, what Bhagavan says here. That tadagantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. So if one who is in Buddhi Yoga, practicing Buddhi Yoga, he can come out from the dense forest of illusion by the help of knowledge and devotional service, and then he becomes indifferent to the rituals of the material world, which means he transcends the limits of Shabda Brahma, that is the range of the Vedas. Range of the Vedas. Shruti means Vedas. Okay, so verse number 53 we will also study today. Shruti vipratipanna te yada sthāsyati nishchala samadhavachala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. Shruti of Vedic revelation, vipratipanna without being influenced by the fruitive results, te your, yada when, sthāsyati remains, nishchala unmoved, samadhav in transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness, achala unflinching, buddhihi intelligence, tada at that time, yogam self-realization, avapsyasi you will achieve. Translation: when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So, usually our mind becomes distracted by the flowery words of the Karmakanda of the Vedas. But when a person becomes dispassionate from the worldly and heavenly enjoyment, he becomes eligible for samadhi. Means he becomes fixed in the trance of self-realization. So in this state, divine consciousness is automatically attained. And who is in samadhi, he has actually realized Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, all the three features of the highest truth. So, perfection of self-realization is to understand that we are eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, that is Krishna, and that he discharged, all of us who understand this can discharge the duties in divine consciousness or supreme consciousness or transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So, such a person is stable. He is stable in his cognizance or divine consciousness always, and is never disturbed by any external factor. But prior to reaching this samadhi, our intelligence is not fixed. There is every possibility to fall down. That is why we have to practice Buddhi Yoga very, very carefully. That is the action, all the action we have to perform in divine consciousness. That is, we are performing all the actions to satisfy the Lord only. We have no worry about the results of the actions that we are performing, but we have to be very careful and devoted to each and every action that we perform. We must put our entire energy and attention to every action that we are performing. So if we can practice continuously without deviation, definitely we can attain that samadhi state, and then we will not be disturbed by any external factor. So with this prayer, that what Bhagavan says in these verses, we can understand by our poor intelligence. Also, we must try to understand, and it is not only about understanding, we must try to implement it in our life. वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।